You have Robert Kiyosaki on one hand and Dave Ramsey on the other hand, both real estate giants. But which one is right? Which is the path that you should take, and why should you take it? Stay tuned, because in this video, we're going to be discussing both sides of the coin. And if you stay to the end, I'm going to share with you a tip, regardless of which side you're picking, that you must do. If you're new to the channel, my name is Bennett Schwartz, and I'm a high performance coach. I work with people both personally and professionally, so if you're looking to live a richer life, make sure to hit the subscribe button. When I first started my financial literacy journey, the two big giants that I ran into were Robert Kiyosaki and Dave Ramsey. And I was so confused in terms of which strategy I should be picking. So I started to do a little bit more research in terms of why it is they each say what they're supposed to say. And today I'm going to share with you the tips that I personally figured out so you can start getting on your journey. This isn't investing advice, this isn't legal advice, this is just my own personal opinion, so make sure to speak to an expert before taking any action. Let's first start out in the different perspectives that they each have. And let's take Robert Kiyosaki first. You see, Robert Kiyosaki is all about leveraging other people's money so you can make money. And therefore, if you can go to a bank and take money from them at a low percentage and make more money from that percentage, you're going to be able to make the difference. So if you can borrow $1 million at 5% and make 8% on that money, you're going to be making that extra 3%. But the cool thing about real estate is that there's so many different ways to be making money that it's usually not just the 3%, but there are other benefits as well, such as appreciation or certain tax benefits that you could be making. So especially when it comes to real estate, just because you're borrowing a certain money and you're making certain money back, you might be able to even break even, but have other benefits just by holding onto it and really owning the real estate. Another big thing that he speaks about is the fact that we want to buy assets and not liabilities. And this is something regardless of whether you're in the Ramsey camp or the Kiyosaki camp, we have to understand what an asset is. And basically, the way that Robert really spells it out is that an asset is something that's going to make you money. If something is taking money out of your pocket, it's going to be considered a liability.
So the definition of an asset is something that puts money in your pocket whether you work or not.
And one of the most confusing areas this comes down to is your own personal residence. Because at the end of the day, you need to have a place to live. So when so many people call that an asset, what's really happening is that we're spending money every single month on that. What's cool is that we could take our own personal residence, turn it into a rental, and then all of a sudden it goes from a liability to an asset. So really understanding what it is we're doing for ourselves and how it is that we're investing. Is the thing that we're investing in making us money, or is it losing us money? And even if you could say you're going to be making more money on the other end of it, we can't really predict what's going to happen, and therefore it's going to be considered a liability. The third and final thing that Robert Kiyosaki speaks a lot about is the Quadrant. He even has a whole book that's dedicated to this, and basically there's two sides to it. You can either be an employee or self-employed, or a business owner and investor. What we have to realize is, which side of the equation are we on? Are we an employee or self-employed, or are we a business owner and investor? And if you're on the second side of the quadrant, you're going to be doing things that are going to be making you money. You're going to be planting trees that will be hanging the fruits of these dollar bills. And what we need to understand is that we all have the ability to be on that second side, but so many people confuse themselves and they work so hard as an employee or even self-employed. And the one scary thing about that is that at any point the market can crash or your boss can fire you. And it's one of the bigger debates about entrepreneurship in general, but understanding that there's 4 different types of people out there. And if we could start to step into what it is that we're going to be doing, we might be more prepared to really build that wealth that we're trying to build. Now let's talk about Dave Ramsey. You see, Dave Ramsey had an experience once he was younger that he ended up borrowing a lot of money from banks and ended up owning a lot of real estate from it. However, what happened was that the banks called his loans, and therefore he had to give everything up, and he ended up losing a lot of money. And he told himself that it's never going to happen again. And because of that, he started to buy real estate, but he started to build it a lot slower. He started to only use cash for the deals that he was going to have, so no bank or no other entity could come and take it away from him. And through that, he was able to build up such wealth over time. And what's crazy about the wealth that he owns is that he owns it by himself. He doesn't have a third party coming in and saying that they're partners with you, such as a bank or other investors. And the reason why is because he doesn't ever want to get burnt again. It's one of the reasons why he doesn't believe in credit cards. He doesn't believe in mortgages, leases for your car, or student debt, because all that does is just put you back in a deeper hole. And unfortunately, so many people, especially nowadays, are so good at spending money, especially when they don't have it. And he has spoken to thousands of people, helping them with what it is that they can be doing in order to get themselves out of debt. Because we all know that financial situations is one of the biggest causes for most anxiety. We're constantly worried about what the next bill is going to be. We're constantly worried about where the next paycheck's going to come and how we're going to pay our next bill. So Dave Ramsey is very bullish in terms of not taking out money from other people and trying to figure out how you can build your wealth without that leverage. The second idea that Dave Ramsey stands very strongly with, which really fits into his bigger character, is that you need to budget. And so many people don't have a budgeting system, and he actually has a really cool budgeting system that you can use that I personally have used. And if we could just learn to budget, then we have the ability to really set ourselves up in a good place. So it's not going to be about getting debt free over the next 30 days, but it's going to be how do we get debt free in the next year and a half. And if we could start to be on top of the process, and he has a whole science in terms of which bills you should be paying first and how you should get out of debt, but understanding that if we can do that, we can start to live a less stressed life and do the things that we want to be doing. He also speaks about having an emergency fund, and he has these called baby steps that he uses to make sure that you can start to build the wealth that you want. So when it comes to Dave Ramsey, it's going to be a lot more self-control and making sure we're not spending the money that we don't necessarily have. And if we can start to do that, then we can start to live the lives that we want to be living and create the wealth that we want to be creating. Now you might be saying, okay, Bennett, so which way is it? Should we be leveraging everything that we can in order to make more money, or should we be being more conservative with our money and really look to buy the things that we can afford and not really take other people's money in order to allow us to build that wealth? And here are the different factors that you need to think about. Number one is by leveraging other people's money, you have access to certain funds that you have the ability to make more money off of. Of course, if you have $25,000, you can get a loan for another $75,000 to buy a house, as opposed to waiting to have the $100,000, which might take a couple of years to buy the same exact house. And you might say within those couple of years that you're looking to raise that extra capital, the value of the house might even go up, so therefore it might be even worth it to take out the loan. However, when it comes to Dave Ramsey's side of things, we have to realize that it's really about the quality of life that we're living. And so many people, they don't factor that into the decisions that we're making. And if we could start to say, hey, it might take me a little bit longer to build wealth, but I'm going to be able to sleep every night not wondering if the market's going to crash. And that security is going to be something that can really help me move forward and live a quality of life. Because of course we all want to be building our finances and we all want to build the wealth that we could build, but really understanding that we have the ability to live a specific type of quality of life while building our wealth, that could be something that could be so beneficial to us. And it's why I tell the young adults that I work with that you need to start understanding what you're doing and start to invest younger. Because if you could start to build that wealth at a younger age and not get yourself in debt, you have the ability to get there so much quicker. The second thing you need to understand is how stressed do you get? You see, there's certain people who love the fight. They love the competition of entrepreneurship, and they'll continuously do things. And even when they get pushed back, they're going to continue to fight. But there are other people who might not necessarily be that way. They don't really like arguing. They don't really like working with the banks. They don't like the possibility of somebody coming and take away their property. And if we can start to understand what your personality is, what is it that you do and how is it that you work, that could be something that could be really beneficial in order to see which decision we can make. At the end of the day, you can get wealthy using both strategies, and really just picking one or maybe a hybrid of both can be something that could be really beneficial for you. And the third thing we need to understand is, are we a spender or not? And I think this is a question that we really need to ask ourselves. Are we somebody who maxes out our credit card every single month? And if so, it might not be the best idea to be having a credit card in the first place. And so many times people don't have enough self-control and they're going to buy the fancy things. There was a study that was just done that 40% of people making over 6 figures are living paycheck to paycheck. And the reason is because they're constantly raising their standard of life. And if we could understand that you could be making $300,000, $400,000 and having the stress of bringing in X amount of money because you're just not budgeting the right way, that could be really, really stressful when your bills are $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 a month. We need to understand who it is that we are and what it is that we can do. And this gets me to my final point of, regardless of whether you're going to be taking more of a risk and stepping into the field of leveraging other people's money, or whether you're going to be more conservative and look to only buy things that you can afford, understand that you need to understand financial literacy. It is so important because during the good times, everyone's going to be making money. But when the time does come down, because it always does come down, the people who are more prepared and more well-versed in terms of what it is they're doing and how it is that they're making their money, those are going to be the people who are going to be able to survive. So regardless of which aisle you're starting to play on, you have the ability to really make sure that you're going to be prepared. So whether it's in real estate, whether it's in stocks, whether it's in Bitcoin, or whatever other investments there are out there, making sure that you have the ability to be prepared and understand what the risks really are, that will allow you to become more successful with whatever direction you're going to be going. So let me know what you're thinking down below. What questions you might have, the difference between Robert Kiyosaki and Dave Ramsey, and what path you're thinking about going down. I would love to be able to hear. And if you like this type of content, make sure to hit the subscribe button and watch this next video, which I really think you're going to like.